I used to travel constantly for work, and I never cared much about where I slept. As long as the room had a bed, a shower, and a cheap price tag, I was good. I never thought about hotel safety, creepy guests, or staff with bad intentions. Nothing strange had ever happened to me in any hotel, until one trip completely changed the way I look at them forever. A few years ago, I had to drive to a small city in Pennsylvania for a training seminar. I booked a normal-looking hotel that wasn't fancy, but nothing about it looked unsafe. The lobby had worn-out red carpet, and this old lady smelled like furniture that's never been aired out. The woman working the desk handed me a key card and told me my room was on the third floor. The hallway was unusually quiet, not peaceful, empty, in a way that felt wrong. Like I was the only person staying on that whole floor. My room looked fine at first. Small bed, old desk, outdated TV. I tossed my bag on the bed, showered, and put on the TV for background noise. After a long drive, I fell asleep quickly. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to a faint scraping sound. I thought maybe it was someone using the ice machine or dragging luggage. I closed my eyes again, but then the noise came again, closer, right near my door. I switched on the bedside lamp and sat up. A small white square slid under my door. My stomach dropped. I got up slowly, picked it up, and unfolded it. The handwriting was messy, shaky. Someone had written that they were watching me from somewhere inside the hotel. I felt my heartbeat thudding in my ears. No footsteps, no voices. The hallway had been dead silent. I locked the chain and sat on the bed with the lamp on, wide awake. About 20 minutes later, the sound came again. Another note. This one said the person had been in my room before I arrived, and that they enjoyed watching people sleep. My hands went cold. I checked the entire room like someone who already knows they won't find anything. Under the bed, in the closet, behind the shower curtain. All clear. I forced myself to sit on the bed and wait, telling myself that a third note meant I'd go straight downstairs. Sure enough, the sound came back, slow and deliberate this time. The third note said, "I'm in the room again." I stared at the words for a full minute before grabbing my bag and getting out instantly. I checked the peephole. Empty hall, opened the door. Still empty. I hurried down the hall, but when I reached the far end of the corridor, I swear I saw someone step out of sight behind the corner. I ran to the front desk, where a different employee was working. He seemed confused and insisted there were barely any guests on my floor. When he went back upstairs with me to inspect the room, nothing looked disturbed, except the window latch. It was snapped clean, like someone had forced it open recently. That was all I needed. I left and never went back. And unfortunately, that wasn't the only hotel experience that changed me. A year later, I was driving through Virginia and got too tired to keep going. I pulled into a cheap hotel a little before midnight. The front desk worker handed me a key without even looking up. The building felt half abandoned. Every room I passed had a "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging, like no one wanted anyone around them. My room was at the end of the hall. It looked fine, but things were off. The lamp was tilted. A dresser drawer was open just a little. The blanket on the bed was rumpled in a way that didn't look accidental. I assumed housekeeping just did a sloppy job. I watched TV, got ready for bed, and eventually fell asleep. A little after midnight, I woke to the sound of my doorknob turning. At first it was subtle, like someone testing the handle. Then I heard the light click of metal, someone sliding a key into the lock. The door pushed inward slightly, but never opened all the way. Just enough for me to see a sliver of light. Then nothing. After what felt like forever, whoever it was walked away. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe a staff member had the wrong room. I eventually fell asleep from exhaustion. But around 2:15 a.m. I woke again, this time to quiet rustling inside the room. Someone was in the corner. I slowly sat up, squinting through the dim light from the TV. A dark figure was standing over my bag. I whispered, terrified. "Who's there?" A deep male voice answered, "Housekeeping. Sorry, I'll leave." He walked to the door and slipped out. I lunged forward and locked the chain behind him. My bag had clearly been rifled through. I called the front desk in a panic, The employee said no housekeepers were working at that hour. Police came. They pulled up the hallway cameras. A large man, clearly not staff, was seen walking back and forth to my door, eventually using a stolen master key to get inside. I demanded a refund and left. I couldn't bring myself to sleep anywhere except my car that night. Another time, in New Jersey, I stayed at a hotel near a hiking trail. It was old, quiet, and smelled like a grandma's attic. I checked in early evening. The woman at the desk told me all the rooms had been cleaned already. My room had one dark corner by the closet that made me uneasy, but I brushed it off. After showering, I climbed into bed and fell asleep fast. Sometime after midnight, I woke to a soft sliding sound, like fabric dragging on carpet. I heard breathing too, slow, controlled breathing, coming from the closet. I sat up carefully. The closet door, which I had left fully open earlier, was now pulled mostly shut. The moment I shifted, the breathing stopped. I backed toward the door without looking away and stepped into the hallway. Nobody was there. The front desk was empty and the phone behind the counter was ringing nonstop. When the worker finally appeared, I told her someone was in my room. She insisted no one besides her, and one housekeeper had keys, and the housekeeper had gone home hours ago. She walked back with me, but when we entered, the room looked untouched, closet wide open again. Nothing disturbed. She suggested I might have been dreaming and offered to switch rooms. I took a different room and locked everything. I was too on edge to sleep. Around 1 a.m., I heard squeaky wheels coming down the hallway. A housekeeping cart. Very slowly. There were no housekeepers on duty. The cart stopped directly outside my new door. Then came the breathing. The same slow, heavy breathing from before, right on the other side of the door. Someone pressed their palm against it, gently tapping and feeling around. Then the cart rolled away. I didn't sleep at all. At sunrise, I checked out. The morning employee told me something disturbing. They hadn't had a real housekeeper on staff for a week. The woman who worked nights simply vanished and never returned. The breathing I heard. Whoever was behind that closet door, it wasn't staff. And the worker the night before, she had insisted housekeeping had already cleaned all the rooms. I still don't know what or who I heard. And finally, here's a story from someone who actually works in a hotel. In 2023, one of our house persons was working nights with a new front desk employee I'll call Brianna. It was a slow Wednesday, barely any guests. He went to restock towels at the pool. Employees use master keys to get in. While grabbing towels from the storage room, he heard something splash in the pool. He ran out to check. A life preserver was floating in the water. No guests had been in the pool. No one had even walked past the front desk to request access. He ignored it, finished his job, and moved on. Around 9:30 p.m., he had to fix a toilet in room 324. The guest wasn't scheduled to arrive until later in the week, so the room was supposed to be empty. While working on the toilet, he suddenly felt the whole room drop in temperature. His arms got goosebumps. The thermostat showed normal numbers and the AC wasn't running. He tried to shrug it off. Once he fixed the toilet, he heard a heavy thump from the bedroom area. When he stepped out of the bathroom, the room phone was hanging off the nightstand, and in the corner, something tall was standing near the bed. A pitch-black figure, no facial features, no clothing details, just an outline of a person in the dim room. It stood perfectly still. Then it moved, just enough for him to see it wasn't a shadow or a trick of the light. He bolted out of the room and didn't stop until he reached the lobby. He clocked out immediately and left. He still has no explanation for what he saw. But after the pool incident and the freezing room, he knows for sure that something was wrong in that empty room. Nothing like that has happened to him since, but he swears that night was the most terrified he's ever been inside a hotel.